Welcome to Founders and Funders. This week I have Dale Crawford on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You are a great filmmaker. I watched your premiere, but before we get into your latest work, let's talk about where it all began. Are you ready? Okay.
Where I began?
Where it all began. So tell me a little bit more about where you were born and raised and your earlier childhood influences.
I was born in Melbourne. I've spent my whole life in Melbourne, Australia. But in a way, I was sort of born into the future because my parents were both computer programmers. So we grew up with a lot of computers. Even back in 1983, we had the first domestic robot. It was a robot called Topo.
Okay.
And it would sort of sing and dance, and we could program it to do all sorts of things.
Oh, wow. Did your parents grow up in Australia also?
Yeah, they did. But yeah, they became computer programmers in the 60s. So it was early days.
My father was an electrical engineer. I remember he probably ruined my passion for software engineering by pushing it on me. So I remember at 9 years old sitting in front of a Commodore 64, old school first personal desktop, and entering all this code and making programs. Did your parents make you do something similar?
I don't know if they made us do it, but we definitely did do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were working on creative projects as well. We would make stop motion movies with Super 8. We'd animate things on the computers.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was all pretty primitive back then.
Yeah. When did you first realize that you had a passion for something creative? Like you talk about animation, creating things. Like I loved computers and math. Like I knew that quite early on. But what were your earlier memories of this creative side of you?
I think when I was 8, at the time I had ambitious plans to invent things.
Okay.
So like the kind of overview of the plan was that I was going to design an electric piston motor that ran on electromagnets.
Oh, wow.
And that it would be this sort of environmentally friendly alternative to a petrol engine.
Wow. At 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah. And so the idea was that I would patent this invention, sell it to the oil companies who would inevitably destroy the idea, but I'd take that money, buy property with it.
Okay.
And then I would use that property to create a permajungle.
Okay.
And use it to experiment on different technologies used to, sort of incubating technologies to improve fix the problems of the world. And then I could roll them out to the world. That was the idea.
I think I was trying to get a Game Boy game allegation. So why you're trying to change the world. So in school, what did you end up studying and like progressing this dream to do this?
Well, at uni, the first thing I did at uni, I was studying fine arts at the Victorian College of the Arts. At the same time, I was studying screenwriting at Swinburne University, and I was studying arts at Melbourne Uni, and that was kind of philosophy and cultural studies and that sort of thing. So it did cross over with the creative arts. But yeah, I was always kind of studying at least 3 things at a time and trying to shape university into something that would actually help me learn the things I wanted to learn and make the things I wanted to make.
Yeah. So when you graduated, what did you do with what you learned?
Well, I graduated in Masters of Multimedia Design at Monash. And when that finished, I was in a relationship with a woman who wanted to start a fashion company.
Oh, cool.
And so she said she wanted to have a build a fashion empire like Chanel. I said, well, I mean, Chanel's big problem really was that she slept with Nazis. I think we could avoid that problem. So we should be able to succeed with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so did you then help her with her ambition for fashion, or like what did you use your skills to do?
Yeah. We built so she was born in Vietnam. She was Cambodian, but she was born during the escape from Pol Pot.
Oh, wow.
And so she was born in the jungles of Vietnam there and escaped eventually to France and then grew up, and her family were in the rag trade. So that's how she got interested in fashion. But because of the traumas of her past, she didn't get to study design. So I learned how to do it and would teach her. So it sort of set up the business, and acquire the skills and then pass them on to her, and with the view that she would eventually run the company by herself.
How did that play out?
Ultimately, she didn't really want the business. It kind of became too much. It's too stressful to manage. And then eventually a marketing company called me up to show at New York Fashion Week, and I had to decide, am I going to design a collection for them under my ex's name or am I going to do what I actually want to do, which was to make movies.
So you didn't show at New York Fashion Week?
Nah.
You could have, though.
Yeah, I wound up the business so that I could start writing and figuring out how to make movies.
That's incredible, though, to get an invitation to show New York Fashion Week.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice of them, but it wasn't my
passion.
No. Yeah. It's a strange thing to do under someone else's name.
For sure. Back then, I'm guessing it's pre-Shopify, pre-internet, So
timing. I think it was around 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. So Shopify probably was around for a couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you market this brand, this clothing company? How were you selling your product back then?
We had a store in Armadale.
Okay.
But because it was all made to measure, most of the customers were from overseas.
Okay.
So they would find us usually through word of mouth, and then we would have their measurements and they could order through us online.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Okay. So you wound up the business. You decided you wanted to focus on writing. What did you write?
I initially started writing my family story. So part of the family came here from China. They came from Toishan at the...
My grandparents are from Toishan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, interesting. So,
do you speak any Toishan?
No. I've almost never heard the language. Sinners, which came out this year, is the first time it's been in film or television.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Do you speak though?
I speak Cantonese. My mom's from Hong Kong. My dad's from the Toishan area. So my grandparents, whenever I speak to them, I have to guess a little bit because there's like a variation.
Yeah.
So there's very few people. One of my best friends here in Australia, in Port Melbourne, she speaks Toishan.
Wow.
And she's from New Zealand, Asian. So like she's got a Kiwi accent and she speaks another dialect of Chinese. So
oh, that's great. Yeah. It's exceedingly rare.
It is rare. Yes.
Yeah, I think even in China now there's...
Yeah, when I hear it, it's very distinct.
Yeah. I think I've only heard it once in real life.
Yeah.
And it was, I was over at my great uncle's house in Bendigo.
Okay.
And he's kind of the custodian of Australian Chinese history. And he got a phone call and started speaking in a dialect which sounded to me like it must be Toisanese.
Yeah.
And so I asked him when he got off the phone, and he said that's what it was.
Oh, wow.
But that's really the only time.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you wanted to tell your family story.
Yeah.
How did you do the research for this?
It's a little tricky because it's the story of secret societies, and secret societies don't tell stories. So, but at that time, so he came here in the early 1850s.
Okay.
And at that time, the secret societies in China had rebelled against the emperor, and they caused a war that was large enough to collapse all of China. And at that same time, we discovered gold in Australia, in Brazil and California. But all of these war-hardened triads poured out of the Pearl River Delta and into the Australian goldfields. Okay. At one point in Bendigo, 40% of the population was Chinese. So there was more Chinese than any other ethnic group. And there were sort of 7 main clans that continued to fight in the war. And then ultimately, my great-great-grandfather rose to power in the Siup Society, and he won that war. And so as a result, he extolled a tax on all of the Chinese there, and they built the Bendigo Hospital and other amenities. Wow. And then he had a imperial dragon made in Hong Kong, which is now the world's oldest imperial dragon. Okay. They had that made and brought over for a parade, which is now the Easter parade in Bendigo.
Okay.
So the Bendigo Museum is the family things, and that's the family dragons in there.
Oh, wow.
But if you sort of read the history, they'll say that the Bendigo parade is a sort of a sign of multiculturalism, and that white people allowed the Chinese to also participate. But what it actually was, was that the imperial dragon was a symbol of the emperor's proxy power in Australia. And my great-great-grandfather was awarded a silver crane, which was sort of like the equivalent of a baronhood, for his efforts to set up Australia as a satellite of the Chinese Empire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so at the time, the imperial dragon was a very powerful symbol. It was so powerful that an imperial dragon has 5 claws.
Okay.
And what you see when you see Chinese dragons normally is that they'll have 4 claws.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because if you have the 5th claw, it's an official imperial dragon, which means that even when the emperor's best friend was given a ceramic from the emperor and had a 5-clawed dragon on it, he had to scratch the 5th claw off each foot, because if they caught him with it, even though they knew he was the emperor's best friend and it was a gift, they'd still have to kill him.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very important symbol that you couldn't play around with at the time, and completely misunderstood in Australian history.
How do you learn all this when it's a secret society? There's not that many photos. Who do you interview? You're going back in time. So what was your process?
Yeah, it's a lot of primary research. If you can find documents, but a lot of the documents are very difficult to find, and people haven't really compiled them. There's a few historians who put some of it together, so the secondary resources in books and things that they'll write. But you'll see things like there was a battle in Brisbane, in a cane field in Brisbane, between 1,800 fully armoured Chinese troops fighting against an army of 1,200 Chinese troops, slaughtering each other in an open field. And it got a 1-line mention in the history books.
Wow.
They didn't even say the death toll. They didn't know who they were, why they were fighting, who they were fighting for. And people, generally speaking, don't even realize there was Chinese in Brisbane.
Yeah. So how did you find out?
Piece together little bits of information, and it takes a long time. I've been researching that project for 16 years now.
Oh, wow.
And as I find the pieces, I keep putting them together.
Okay. So that was your writing project, and it's still ongoing?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you have a project that's ongoing for 16 years, how do you then create your next project? You've done quite a few projects, and that context switching, like how do you manage multiple multi-decade projects?
It's not easy. I mean, so I've written 5 films.
Okay.
I've just released my first feature film. But film projects are big. They're long. The money doesn't come throughout the process. And so it can be long stretches without any money. And the projects are difficult to get momentum on. So you can go years where one project's not moving, but another project is. And so there's a bit of switching to try and not keep all the balls in the air, but to try and keep pushing each
Moving
one forward
on each one. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're doing this family one. At what pivotal point did you think, I need to do something else in addition to this? Like what's the indicator for you? Like, I need to create another track, like another piece. Like what was that?
The process of trying to make any kind of ambitious artwork, any work that involves other people, is that other people need to feel like that this thing is going to happen. They need to believe it. They need to think it's going to have momentum to want to get on board with it. And the more ambitious the project is and the earlier it is in your career, the less likely it is to be believed.
Okay. And
so you're always having to prove that you've got chickens before you've, when you've only got an egg.
Yeah.
And so, there's always that challenge of proving.
Okay.
Yeah. And that project is an enormous project. I think that's part of the appeal of it, is that people don't realize the scale of what the Chinese story in Australia. Yeah. But that scale is also very expensive to turn into a film, which makes it less likely to get produced. So smaller projects will then prove that
for sure
I can do that.
So what did you do? What did you write what was your next project?
So the one that I've completed is least ambitious. Is probably not the the best way to phrase it, but that was made because at the time I was dating a woman who was friends with Slash from Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
Guitarist. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was setting up a company called Slasher Films. And he wanted...
Interesting name.
Yeah. He wanted... he might not have had a choice there. I don't know what else he could do there. But he wanted 80s style horrors or 70s style psychological thrillers.
Okay.
And he wanted them to be produced at an achievable budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of said that I got an idea for a psychological thriller. I don't really have an 80s horror in me, but the psychological thriller I can. And so I wrote that with the intention of having it produced by his company. But as I was writing it, I met with an actor who stole a TV show that I had written and registered it with the Australian Writers Guild under his name.
Wow.
And so at the time, I withdrew all the scripts and set up my own production company and said, I'm just going to slate them and make them all myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it take to create your own production company?
Chutzpah. It takes, you've got, I mean, because the process is persuading, hundreds of people to join your project. You got to persuade them all that you believe it, or that they believe it. In order to do that, you need to believe it first.
Right. So what did you do? How did you create this production company?
So I started, so I had the first script. And so then it was a matter of figuring out, how to finance this thing, how to organize it, who are all the people that I need for cast and crew, and how to put it together. So I started working as an actor and a model, and then I got on people's sets.
Okay.
Because directors spend the least time on set.
Really?
You think about how often you get to make a movie, and then how many days on set you get for each movie.
Right.
Everyone else has had more time on sets. The caterers have spent more time on sets than directors.
Okay.
So being an actor, being a model, I get to be on all of these sets and see how everybody else works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you become a model to help your network and grow your experience?
Yeah. And to spy on sets, just to see how everybody else is doing it and try and learn from their mistakes before I have to pay for them myself.
Right. What was your first gig?
I can't remember. But they all started off with very little responsibility.
Okay.
Especially modeling. I mean, modeling, you're not really responsible for anything much at all. Maybe the way you stand.
Yeah.
But it's not a difficult. It might be difficult to get the job, but it's not difficult to do the job.
All right.
It's more a matter of just feeling comfortable with it being a very unusual situation.
Yes.
But yeah, because of the nature of acting and modeling gigs, that you don't get huge jobs with huge responsibility
right
in
away.
the beginning.
Yeah.
And so you get time to get familiar with the set and how it works and the craft of acting and modeling. You get time to develop all of those skills on the job.
Yeah.
So if you can stay employed enough, then you can develop those skills. And ultimately for me, then I can take the money and reinvest it all into the film.
Right.
Yeah.
What were some of the most difficult things to learn for you that you struggled with?
The challenge is that there's a certain level of ambition that comes with a project. So if you were going to make a reel or something on social media, it's a fairly low bar and you can kind of get in with very few skills. A short film requires a lot more from you and you're probably having to coordinate cast and crew. If you're going to make a feature film, there's quite a few people involved and it's expensive and difficult to manage, and you're essentially setting up a medium-sized enterprise for a few weeks and establishing corporate culture that has to work immediately. There's no room for failure. And then it's all wound up. So the most difficult thing is, how do you get everything to the quality, the level of quality that it needs to be in order to justify the existence of the project?
Right.
Because every film, doesn't matter what the budget is, every film competes on a kind of the same playing field. You don't pay more for a movie ticket because the movie cost 200 million. If the movie cost 1 million, you'd still pay the same for the ticket, and your expectation is still that it is of a certain level of quality.
Yeah. It's valued the same.
Yeah.
No matter the cost.
Yeah. And then how do you get your craft to the level where the first thing you do, essentially, which involves all of these different skills, getting all of those skills to a level where you can produce something that's of artistic value.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do.
So when you create this company, is it a collection of freelancers, or are they employees that you need to employ just for the project? How does it work behind the scenes? I'm always interested, because I think for modeling, like, you have a crew that kind of comes together for the shoot. Like you have your hair and makeup person for that day, you have the photographer, you have the model. They come from different management, and then they shoot and they're gone. But when you're filming for a while. You're writing, you're going through castings and stuff. So how do all the pieces fit together? And because are you all entrepreneurs? Are you subcontractors? How does it all work?
Yeah, generally. So there's three main phases of production. You have pre-production, where there's a handful of top-line people working out how it's all going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you have actual production, where the cast and crew and everybody comes in, and they're all freelancers. And then at the end of it, you move into post-production, and there might be visual effects and editing and color grading and sound design and composing the music and so on. And so they're all different, disparate people as well. Some of them you can draw from the culture, really. It's not really an industry, but the culture of independent film. But others have to come from industry. So they're coming from advertising, or they're coming from film and television. And you really... part of the problem of establishing corporate culture is finding all the right people who are going to come together, not just to do the right work, but to do it together and to work well together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult challenge, and you only get one chance to do it, because the next project, if that ever exists, is going to be completely different.
Yeah. So that was we talked about your second project, the one that you finished. That wasn't Lilith, or is that?
Yeah, so Lilith was the one that I'd originally written as a psychological thriller for Slash. But during that process, because the process is so long, that took 10 years from writing through to release, I wrote other films during that process. I'm continually developing a whole series of projects.
And what is the first one made a lot of sense with your family and the history, and the second one with the production company with Slasher Films. What was your inspiration for the other projects you come with?
Ooh, they're all different, but they've usually been around for a long time. So, the next project I'm working on is a documentary in Japan about Zen Buddhism and enlightenment. And at one point I was going to make that as my PhD in philosophy at Melbourne Uni. But that's 23 years ago now. And so I had written up the plan for that film back then. But now I've written a script and I've started shooting, and it's slowly coming together. Probably in the next sort of 3 or 4 years that will be complete. But yeah, most of the ideas are ideas that have been with me for decades. But a few of them that I'm working on at the moment, there's one I was working on this morning, is a new idea, and I only started working on that in March.
And what was the inspiration?
It was kind of born of a combination of things. For 5 years, I was raising children that weren't my children, but raising these children. And I was thinking about what the world will be for them. And at the same time, I was watching news and politics and the way the world was developing, and seeing how difficult it was going to be for these young mixed race kids who were in a position of being demonized in the world at the moment, and sort of thinking about, you know, what are effective metaphors to convey this experience for people.
Okay. Yeah, I think definitely I noticed the last couple of years, my lifestyle has changed with the change of like new advances in technology. For sure, our daily habits and routines, like our amount of screen time.
Yeah.
Right. What do you see as some of the major shifts in your space in the last couple of years that change the way others work and yourself, and the impacts to what your next projects will be like?
People are consuming information in a different way.
Okay.
So I like to look at what changes and what doesn't change in our perceptions. So, for example, if you took a 15th century Renaissance painting and had someone analyze it at the time, they would do at least as good a job, probably a better job, than people would do of analyzing those paintings now. But if you showed those 15th century art scholars a TikTok, they probably couldn't read what's happening in that series of images. So there's a different speed at which we can absorb information, but it hasn't changed our speed of comprehension, and it hasn't changed our emotional speed.
Okay.
So we're able to consume more images, but we're no more able to derive more meaning from them than we were before. And our emotional experience becomes stunted by the speed. So emotions take time, and they take time to develop into the next emotion. And if we don't have the time to go through that process, those emotions are cut off, and ultimately there's a kind of a numbing. You
like
never
a gap.
you never realize the emotion, and if you can't realize the emotion, there's no satisfaction.
It's a bit of a void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was in the 90s when we had vacuum tube televisions with the curved screen.
Yeah.
Cats couldn't read that image.
Okay.
But once we had a flat screen TV, cats could suddenly see what was going on.
Why can't cats see curved screens?
I'm not sure. It's something to do with the way their eyes work.
Okay. I didn't know they couldn't see.
Yeah. I mean, they might react to the sound on the television, but they just had no interest in the image because it didn't make any sense to them. Once we got flat screen TVs, it did make sense to them. And some scientists created an animation for the cats as a
show
test.
for cats.
Yeah. And it was essentially a sort of a simple 3D polygon of a goldfish, and it would move in a particular way that would trigger the hunting instincts of the cat. And the cats would just tense and dig their claws into the carpet, and they'd be poised, ready to pounce, but it would never trigger them to pounce.
Because there's a different behavior of a goldfish.
Yeah, it's the nature of it. There was never the trigger that enabled them to move to the next phase. And so what happened was they were fixed in this stressful state, never able to leave it. And that's pretty close to what we're creating for ourselves.
We never get the closure. Like
It's becoming less and less of we're consuming more images, but we're consuming less fully realized narratives. And so we're not allowing ourselves to go through this full emotional cycle. We get caught and stunted in this stimulating state.
And then we're craving to get it. So we stick in the loop longer.
Yeah. It's like with the dopamine and the serotonin doesn't come because the content is good when you're thumbing through a scroll. It comes with the anticipation that the next thing might be good.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the content itself can be uniformly terrible. That's not what's stimulating you. What's stimulating is the
unsatisfied need.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually really sad that songs have gotten shorter in duration.
Yeah,
on average.
that's interesting.
Like before, when growing up in the 90s, songs are like 3.5 minutes, And I remember looking at an album recently and I'm like, all the songs are just over 2 minutes, but there's the same number of songs. But
Yeah.
at least we're not buying CDs. But like when you're streaming it, you're like, oh, the song's over.
Yeah, because that leads to more plays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, originally there was a place called Tin Alley where they
yeah.
created these songs, and that's the songs ended up being shortened for Tin Alley, and it was producing the early singles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, essentially they were like advertising jingles. They wanted something short, catchy. The shorter it is, the more you can play it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until really the 70s was like the peak length of a track, and you could make concept albums and things, and it was about taking someone through a full arc. You could go through an entire emotional process. You could shape that whole process. It's really because long play records allowed you to do that. But now the incentive is gone.
So where do you sit in you're a purist and a traditional person who wants to bring back what we used to have, or are you someone who then follows the trend of, this is what the other companies are producing. We're going to be charging the same amount at theater, so you might as well produce something aligned with the others. Where do you sit in this?
I think to some degree you've got to defy it. I think like my goal is to make work that's important, and then I'm the measure of whether or not it's important. And there's a temptation. The temptation of following trends is to remove yourself from what you think is actually of importance, because ultimately people are going to have a mixed diet. The landscape is going to change. More information is going to be produced. We produce more video content now than ever in the history of the world, far more than anyone could ever watch in 1,000 lifetimes.
Sure.
And so the goal is to not stop people from ingesting junk food. It's to try and bring balance to their diet by offering something of nutritional value. If you create work of merit, then it's really a matter of finding the audience, and the audience doesn't have to be a purist at all. They just need to want something good in their diet.
Yeah. I was watching an interview with Adele, and she was asked when she's going to do more TikTok videos, and she's like, I'm making music for people like me.
Yeah.
Like if everyone's making TikToks, who's going to satisfy my needs? Like the style that I want, the duration of song, and the quality in production. So your latest film, Lilith, how is it going with the marketing you've released globally? Tell me how it's going so far, and what's involved behind the scenes when you finish production and now it's time to show it to everyone.
I think a lot of filmmakers fail to anticipate the next phase. You think about pre-production, production, post-production, and if you make it that far, they're not thinking about distribution and sales and marketing. It's a whole other life, a whole other sort of cycle of work that is usually not being thought about by filmmakers. I have a sales agent and distribution company, and they have a publicity company, and it's their role to do the rollout. But ultimately, as I think it is with most things, you kind of have to have some measure of input and control and to develop that. But they organize the distribution, so it's out on streaming platforms all around the world. And then there's sort of supplemental advertising, and most of that is online. It's mostly social media, and then it's sort of the local channels that I look after.
Okay.
So it's available on Vimeo on demand in Australia. And then, I run the YouTube and TikTok and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah. So when I was building products in tech, we have an idea, we prototype it, and then we release it to friends and family. We gather our feedback, and then we refine it, and then release it and run experiments. when you're doing a multi-year production, like, how does this work in terms of the feedback you're getting from the movie in like post-production? Do you do some previews to see how audiences are receiving it? This is the product that you build in such a long duration. How do you test this? Is there any testing? How does it work?
I think the scale of it sort of determines what you can do.
Okay.
So with advertising, it's easy to cut multiple trailers and split test them. With the film, it's not as easy.
Okay.
Companies like Pixar have sort of famously done that with quite a long process, and they have years to develop a project with many iterations. But animation is the most iterative form. Independent film, there's not really a lot.
Okay.
You really have to come at it every day with fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh emotions, and assess yourself. What is happening here, and is it happening in the best possible way? But it totally falls back on the auteur. I mean, you've got to make the decisions for yourself. I used to, when I was running design companies, fashion companies, and so on, I used to design hand-tufted carpets for palaces in the Middle East. And there was one I did which was a majlis for the kings and the queens of the Arab Emirates. And it was a 700 square meter single piece of hand tufted carpet. And so each tuft is 5 millimeters wide. And so it's a highly detailed wool and silk tufted thing that's then hand carved. And you've got a 5 millimeter tolerance for error. And over 700 square meters, there's no one who can assess whether or not you've created the technical illustration perfectly, because they don't know what's an error and what's not. And you just have to rely on yourself and your how thorough are you? How much control do you have over this process that you can be satisfied that you've done a good enough job? There's no real safety net. There's no one you can rely on to make sure that it is what it should be.
And personally, what are your metrics of success for producing film? Like, what at the end of the day, on your deathbed, really far in the future, would you would you say you've done these things and you're happy with what you've produced? Like, you've met what you set out to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a paradox of purpose. Right. If you set yourself a goal, the achieving of the goal strips you of purpose. But you have no purpose unless you set yourself a goal. And so there's this paradox of purpose that people are eternally caught in, like the cat watching TV. And so I try not to be too concerned with the outcomes so much as moving each project forward a little bit, adding ideas, shaping, creating, just continually moving through the process. And if I get to make a lot of films, then I'm happy about that. And if I get to make a few films, I'm happy about that. But really, it's just the process of working through.
It's interesting because people ask me why I do the podcast, and they ask me why I do the modeling. And I said, I wanted more representation in media. And my friend, who's highly driven, overachieving, only child of an Asian family, asked me, well, when is it over? Like, when have you met your goal? And I said, you never meet your goal. Like, they'll never.
Because goals make people want it to be over.
Right. And I said, it's never over. And he's like, what? But how will you know if you did a good job? I'm like, by just trying my best every day. Yeah.
Look, maybe one day we'll be old and tired. And we'll want it to be over.
But
until
sure.
then, you want to do the best you can.
So from what I gather, it's highly complex to create to write and create a movie and then create the production company to produce it. What advice do you have for people who aspire to do something like you're doing? What do you wish someone told you before you started?
I mean, the challenge is you don't know how hard it's going to be, and you can never really explain to anybody how hard it's going to be. But I think starting small and trying and then learning and iterating is the way to do it. Because the smaller you start, the easier it is to get momentum.
Lower risks too.
Yeah.
More feedback.
Yeah. And we're in an environment now where everybody is a content producer. Everybody's required to.
Yeah.
So you can learn from these things. There was a Tibetan monk who worked as a cultural consultant on Bertolucci's The Last Emperor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love The Last Emperor.
It's
so
incredible.
Yeah.
But it's also an incredibly unique film in that it was a biographical film. It tells the life story of The Last Emperor in chronological order. And you almost never can do that because people's lives aren't a full story from beginning to end. It doesn't work. So it's really the only film that does that. But this monk had never seen a film except for The Last Emperor because he worked on it. And then he said he watched 6 other films that were all terrible.
Okay.
But from those, he learned what didn't work. And then he made his first film.
Okay.
And he shot it on film up in the Himalayas. It's called The Cup. It's about these little boys who are monks in the monastery and they want to watch the World Cup.
Okay.
So they love soccer and they want to see the cup. It's a great film. And it's a film from a guy who's only ever seen 7 films at the time. And so I think it's easy these days because of the proliferation of enormous amounts of media to feel like we never know enough. We need to consume more before we're ready to make something.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's an easy trap to get stuck in because there's always more to watch. And so what happens is people are less inclined to make and more inclined to consume. And the challenge is to consume less and make more.
Yeah, I agree. I think the times when I just go out and try to do things, you learn so many things about what you didn't like about it to change, rather than sitting there either consuming content on how to do something or reading about it if there's still people who read.
Yes. Well, I remember hearing a novelist talk about this, and he'd just written his second novel and he's being interviewed about it. And he said, they were asking him how he knew how to write his second novel. And he said he had no idea how to write his first novel until he'd written his first novel.
Right.
He had no idea how to write a second novel until he'd written his second novel. You'd need to go through the process.
That's very good advice.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. And for the people who want to watch Lilith, you mentioned that it's streamed everywhere.
Yep. If they're in Australia, vimeo.com/on-demand/Lilith movie is the way to find it.
And our North American audience?
North America, Fandango is the way for them to see it.
Okay.
And if they're anywhere else, it's on Google Play, it's on Amazon Prime, and it's on Apple TV.
Excellent. And for people who want to get in touch with you?
Probably Instagram is the best, and that's Moon Room Films. So moon as in the thing in the sky at night.
Yeah.
The room that we're recording in.
Yes.
Films.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Dale.
Thank you. My pleasure.